Welcome back to Green Mountain Mornings here on 100.3 FM, AM 1490. It is 9 minutes past the top of the hour. I am your host, Olga Peters, and I want to welcome to the studio Melanie Winters from the Reformer. How are you, Melanie?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
And I also want to let listeners know that BCTV is here and in the studio, and they are filming this hour of Green Mountain Mornings for us, and broadcast of Green Mountain Mornings tonight on BCTV is sponsored by Brattleboro Savings and Loan. And we want to give a huge shout out to BCTV because it's this type of work that they do in the community is the reason that the funding from the FCC that has been talked about in the local news recently is so important. I shouldn't say from the FCC, through the FCC from cable companies like Comcast and cable companies such as that. So if you care about public access television, make sure you send a letter to the FCC and say, don't change the rule. Make the cable companies, kick back for their use of the public airwaves, because the airwaves are public. How's that, Melanie?
That's well said. Thank you.
Anything you want to add to that?
No, you said it. You said it. Everything quite well. Yes, I agree. 100%.
Thank you. Yeah, we sometimes forget, those of us who don't work in media, but the airwaves being public, that is one reason the cable companies, this rule kind of went into place saying that this is a privilege, that you get to have access to what is a public asset. And yes, I think they need to keep paying. That's just me. Melanie, let's give a shout out. Let's start this hour with a great shout out to kids at Newbrook.
Yes, amazing accomplishment. They came in second place in the statewide spelling bee. It was held in Northfield on November 17th. They won the Wyndham Central Supervisory Union bee in October. Mm-hmm. And then they went on to Woodstock for 4 regional bees and won that one. And then the team went on to the state one. Now this team is very involved in spelling bees. Last year, the team went to the regional competition.
Oh my gosh.
Unfortunately, came in last place. The last time Newbrook School went to the state competition, it was 2015. And that time the team came in third place. So getting better there,
Yeah.
Really, really good job with this year's team. Congratulations.
Yay. Yeah, that is a huge accomplishment, because you think not only did they compete once, but they kept, going through all the different levels. That's a lot of work.
They work throughout the year. The kids are really into it, and they work hard, and they practice their words and so forth. So good for them. Kudos to them.
Major kudos to them, especially this is coming from someone who is not a good speller. In fact, my mom, when I was in high school, bought me one of those electric typewriters, and it had a spell checker. It had a little place where you could preview what you had typed,
right? And
then it would type it for you. Before we all had laptops, and she said the spell checker would bing every time I spelled something wrong, and she says it always sounded like I was in my room playing Jingle Bells.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yep, basically, yep. So I have a huge admiration for these kids who took second place.
They worked hard, and they deserved it.
Just out of curiosity, you have a picture there of the kids.
Yes, they...
How many are there? On
There's
the team?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 kids and 1 coach. And they're holding plaques and trophies and all kinds of, and ribbons around their necks. So I guess that represents the different levels of competition. So,
did the article happen to mention what the hardest word was, or any of the challenges they went through?
One student said a hard word he got was diffidence.
Yeah, okay.
Diffidence. I don't even know what that is, but...
I know, we're going to have to look that up. How embarrassing.
Yeah, I'm not even sure what that was. Discrepancy was another one.
Yeah, that can throw you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's see, what else? I don't see any others mentioned here, but those were 2 that were mentioned, yeah. And the coach said that they missed 2 regular words at the state competition, but got 5 bonus words.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. They ended up with 112 points. The number one team, Rumney Memorial School, had 124. So they were 12 points off from the first place.
Hey,
And
that's
the
pretty
third
good.
place had 104. So that's how that ranked. But good for them.
Well done, all the excellent spellers at Newbrook Elementary. You are listening to Green Mountain Mornings on 100.3 FM, AM 1490, 20 minutes past the top of the hour, and I am your host, Olga Peters. Thank you for joining us today, Melanie Winters from the Reformer.
Thank you for having me.
So we did a little online sleuthing, not too much sleuthing, actually. We just went to Merriam-Webster online. But diffidence, since none of the three of the adults in this studio knew the meaning of the word, we looked it up because there's no shame in looking up information. Diffidence is a noun, and it is the quality or state of being unassertive or bashful. So there you go.
Diffidence.
Melanie, Project Feed the Thousands is in its 25th year. It's been doing a number of fundraisers, and on December 14th is the annual Feed the Bus.
Yes. And they are really, really appealing to the public for help because they're a little bit behind on what they should be collecting this time of year. And, that breaks my heart. Of course. Mm-hmm. So that, they reached out to us and we really need to get the word out there. So, they have the Fill the Bus at the Hannaford Shopping Plaza. That's going to be on the 14th, as you said. And just any donations, anything you can bring, anything at all that they would really appreciate. $5, $10, $20, if you can't bring food or, a bag of food, that it might cost you $10 in the store or something like that would really help a family because of the distribution system that they have set up. They can make the most bang for the donations that they get.
Yeah, and we should note that they have a goal this year, Project Feed the Thousands does, of raising $80,000 in monetary donations and enough food to equal about 200,000 meals.
200,000 meals, yeah.
And they are at about 33,000 on the monetary end and about 100,000 on the meal end. And so they're just about halfway to their goal, and Project Feed wraps at the end of the year. So they only have a few weeks.
Right. And they told us that they're about 20,000 below what they were this time last year. So they're really hoping the public sees this and digs a little deeper and helps out.
Do they have any thoughts on why fundraising's been sluggish?
it's just, we also have another story here about poverty rates and everything like that in this region.
We'll be getting to that.
We'll be getting to that later. It's just, the economy, is doing okay. It's just wages, that's still a central issue for the middle class, and the lower middle class is wages.
Yeah, and I know we joke in Vermont about, what do you call a Vermonter with only 3 jobs?
Right.
We joke about that as being lazy, but unfortunately for so many people, that is the reality.
I know a lot of people who are working multiple jobs.
Yeah. So to find that the days of graduate from high school, get an entry-level job, earn enough to raise a family, buy a house, and retire.
No.
For a lot of people, that's no longer the reality. Yeah.
Particularly those who only have like one income in the house. Those are the ones who a lot of times are working the multiple jobs just to pay housing.
Right.
Is a huge part of it.
Yeah, housing's a lot. I was speaking to Stephanie Yu from the Public Assets Institute. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
No.
They're an interesting organization up in Montpelier, and they I would call them like a financial advocacy group. They look at how the Vermont economy is working, and a lot of statistics come out of there.
Yeah.
And she was saying that, and now I totally forgot what she was saying. Wages. We often talk about in Vermont how our cost of living is high, our wages are low.
Right.
She made an interesting point. She said, our cost of living is pretty much on par with a lot of other places. That in general, it's actually not higher
Right.
than a lot of places are paying for, say, housing or something. The problem really is our wages are just that
Low.
behind
Yeah.
the eight ball.
Yeah. I moved up here from Connecticut, and the cost of living is a little bit higher there, but not enough to justify the difference in the wages.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. It was even, I think my big eye-opening moment, I've said this to listeners a few times, is I lived a couple years in London, thought to be one of the most expensive cities in the world. And yet I was, paying pounds, earning pounds, and I made it okay.
Yeah.
It was not a shock to my system. And I thought, wow, if London is not freaking me out to be living here and paying my way, it wasn't a cakewalk, but I didn't struggle like I struggle here.
Right.
Because everything was a little more in a line.
Yeah.
So Feed the Bus is happening on December 14th. What time is it happening at Hannaford's? Do we know?
Let me see here. Do we have a time? Our bad if we didn't put a time.
I have a feeling because
I think it's all day.
Brad FM is going to be there. I don't know if folks from WTSA will be there as well. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., I think is what we'll be doing.
Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't post hours here. I apologize for that. But my impression was it was all day.
Yeah, we will be there all day. I'll be going by after my air shift on the 14th. And whatever you can spare, whether, as Melanie said, $5, $10, non-perishable food items. According to Project Feed, about 1 in 8 households are hungry. And is it?
Yes, I have that highlighted here.
And what, 1 in 4 children?
I know I had that highlighted. Where did I put that? Project Feed, first of all, serves more than 18,000 people in the region. 1 out of every 8 households is facing hunger, and 1 in 4 children go to bed hungry each night in this area. And that's not a national statistic. That's here.
That's here.
Yeah.
That's the local.
Yeah.
That is what's happening here and now.
Those are your neighbors and your kids' friends and.
Yeah, 1 in 8 in such a small area. You definitely know someone who's going to bed hungry.
Yeah.
At night. So yes, if whatever you can donate on the 14th at Hannaford's from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. will be welcomed and greatly appreciated and go to a very good cause.
Absolutely.
We are listening to Green Mountain Mornings on 100.3 FM, AM 1490, 33 minutes past the top of the hour. I am your host, Olga Peters, and my guest is Melanie Winters from the Reformer. Hey, Melanie.
Hello.
We are going to pick up our conversation kind of where it left off in the last segment, and that is we were talking about the Feed the Bus event that's happening to benefit Project Feed the Thousands on December 14th at the Hannaford's. Should be starting at 6 a.m. and going to 6 p.m. And one reason we wanted to kind of keep on that vein is that Melanie, one of your colleagues from the Bennington Banner, published an article about poverty rates in southern Vermont and how they have gone up. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, some pretty sobering statistics, but not surprising ones, really. Everybody's saying it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, we joke about multiple jobs. We joke down here about how we are kind of the forgotten counties. And we don't belong to Massachusetts, but Vermont forgets we exist, too. And I think this solidifies that.
These statistics are pretty telling. It says here in Windham County, last year's rate was 11.6%, or 4,800 people. That's compared to 10.7% in 2007. It's the rate over the last 10 years hit a high of 14.7%, and that was in 2012. Now, both counties, the poverty rates are lower than the U.S. rate of 13.4%, yet higher than Vermont's 10.8%.
Yeah. And I think we should note 2012, that peak one thing that we need to remember is that was right after Tropical Storm Irene had hit in August of 2011.
Yeah, that's right. That's
And
right.
so
Yeah, there's
that may have-
definitely a effect on there,
Yeah.
cause and effect there. Yeah,
That may have
I think
skewed
so,
some
yeah.
numbers there. So
Right.
11.6%. And I think that's what stood out to me in this article was while we still may be doing better than a lot of places in the United States, we are lagging behind
Yes.
the rest of our state. And of course, we're lagging behind Chittenden County.
I think if you were to break this, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think if you were to break this down by New England numbers, our region would be down. Mm-hmm. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but New England is doing quite well. Most of New England is doing pretty well.
Yeah.
Rhode Island aside.
Oh, right. That's part of New England. Oh, so is Connecticut, isn't it? Yes. Yeah, I think the highest poverty rate in 2017 was actually in northern Vermont with 15.2%, which Orleans County, which that's considered part of the Northeast Kingdom,
Yeah,
isn't
I
it?
believe so, yes.
Grand Isle County was the lowest at 8.2%. What was your response overall to this article?
Well, another part of this I wanted to point out first is who are these statistics? Mm-hmm. And we're talking about people that are generally older than 65, retired, living on a fixed Social Security income, or adults with disabilities who rely on benefits, and people under 18. So you're talking about the most vulnerable among us.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point.
Mm-hmm. And so you'd also have to consider Vermont. It has an aging population too. That's another one of our issues, and so that skews the statistics too. So we need goes back to the wages. We need the better wages, and we need to get more middle class families here, filling the schools, getting getting some good paying jobs, and just balancing out these statistics, I think.
Well, I think that's a really good point, Melanie, because excuse me, everyone, you get to listen to my cold. One thing about Vermont is we're not as resilient as we like to think we are, and it's because we're lacking diversity on so many levels.
Yes.
Age diversity, workforce diversity, wage diversity.
Yes, that is a good point. Excellent point.
Are you seeing anything coming down from the state that can help these things, Melanie, as you're kind of watching the news cycle?
We did meet. We met with Governor Scott just before the election, just kind of an assessment of how things are going. And, his focus is on economic development. And, on that front, we tend to agree with him. There should be more emphasis on economic development to bring in the better paying jobs. I think that would alleviate a lot of these issues.
I think you're right. And John Walters and I from 7 Days were talking on Monday. And I said to him at the time, I said, one thing about Vermont with economic development is we have so many chicken and eggs. Mm-hmm. We need to attract workforce, but without good internet and affordable housing,
right?
Who's going to want to come?
Right.
If we support the people here, we need to raise wages, but how do you raise that if people are already strapped?
Right.
So it's like chicken and egg, chicken and egg,
right.
chicken and egg.
Right. I think it's something like this. It's a gradual progression or improvement of things. You can't expect, just snap your fingers and it's going to instantly be better.
Yeah.
It takes time and it takes a lot of hard work. We have been doing some stories about local companies expanding or other companies moving in and buying, buildings that were closed or were due to be closed. There are some companies that are realigning and readjusting and lowering their employment base. But even in a healthy economy, that's to be expected. But I think overall you would find a net gain in just, recent months of businesses coming to Brattleboro or expanding in the Brattleboro area.
Which is very exciting.
Yes, yes.
Any last minute thoughts on the article from the Bennington Banner about poverty rates before we?
I think we covered it all. A lot of this, like I said, would be alleviated with some economic development initiatives that would boost the wages in this region.
Mm-hmm. And if you're curious and want to read this article, you can find it on the Brattleboro Reformer's website. And it was posted Friday, December 7th. And it was by Tiffany Tan from one of the colleagues of Melanie's at the Bennington Banner.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of companies changing, the Nuclear Decommissioning Citizens Advisory Panel heard kind of an overview agreement or an overview reading of the agreement between Entergy and North Star.
Yes.
To sell VY to North Star, and the state has approved this.
Yes.
And it looks like the sale could happen by the end of January 30th?
Yes. At this point, everybody is reviewing the document and kind of proud of, the proverbial fine-tooth comb kind of thing. But I think everybody's relieved to get to this point because it has been a long road. Mm-hmm. It has been a long. When did Yankee close? 2014. So it's been 4 years. Mm-hmm. So that's of meetings and advisory panels and hearings and on all levels and all over the state, and it's been a long road, and I think there's a lot of relief on that front. But there's also caution. Everybody's got to look at the fine print and the details and the long-term ramifications of everything, and so everybody's got to have their say from that as well.
Right.
So it's not over. It's not over, but this is a major hurdle. Major hurdle. I know the people in Vernon are very happy. Yes. And
I know the Conservation Law Foundation didn't sign on to the agreement. They don't in favor of it. But I do think it's telling that it did get so much buy-in.
Yeah.
From the state, from a number of state agencies, from the companies themselves, and even the New England Coalition.
There were a lot of stakeholders throughout this whole process. Mm-hmm. So to get by all of those except for the one, that's an accomplishment. It is. It
really is. I thought Bill Irwin, who works for the state, at the end of the meeting asked a good question. Or I should say at the end of Susan Smallhere's article. Folks from North Star were talking about how there might be some staffing changes going forward as they start decommissioning. Mm-hmm. And some of the Entergy employees are still there.
Yes.
Just taking care of day-to-day things. And he asked a good question. He said, are you planning on holding on to any of these Entergy employees because they have the institutional knowledge?
Right.
We haven't heard anything about that, though, have we?
That'd be interesting to follow up on that. Not as yet, but yeah, that'd be interesting to follow up on that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's a good point.
A 40-year plant, it has a lot of nooks and crannies.
Right.
Here was just I thought a fun article that appeared in the Reformer, and I think it was submitted by the Brattleboro Historical Society.
Yes, it was. They came to us and said, hey, we want to do this. Can you get it in the paper? And I'm like, this sounds like a great idea. Local history. Mm-hmm. How much do people really know about the history of their own hometown?
Exactly.
I even the hometown that I grew up in, I didn't know half as much as when I learned as covering as the local reporter. I mean, I learned so much more about my hometown. And because I got, to know the people who were involved in the historical society and so forth. And I love getting those in the paper. Just, kind of neat little factoids,
Exactly. Exactly. Now, is this something they're going to do for regularly?
This is going to be an ongoing series.
Awesome.
Yes. We're going to, perhaps weekly. We have another one coming up this weekend that they've already submitted. Mm-hmm. Can't off the top of my head remember what it is because I haven't actually read it yet. But this particular one that was already in was about skiing at Living Memorial Park and the whole history behind how the town got the land, how skiing evolved and developed at that site over the years before it even became Living Memorial Park.
That's the thing I didn't know. I didn't realize that the skiing which opened in 1938, predated the park.
Yeah, the park was a tribute to World War II as like a memorial, living memorial park, and it was purchased actually with war bonds.
Wasn't that cool?
Yeah. So all these neat little factoids. It's great. And Bill Holiday first came, emailed me and said, "Would you be interested in this?" I'm like, "Duh, yeah." I mean, they're giving us the pictures. They've got everything. I mean, they've got everything for us, and then they wrote it all up, and they got another one coming up this weekend. So I'm really excited about this series.
What was the part of this story about skiing at Living Memorial Park that really caught your attention or caught your fancy?
I think it was the war bonds thing.
Yeah.
Because people bought those, during the war years, and I don't think there was ever a plan of what people were going to do. Maybe they were going to hash them in for themselves, but the whole community came together and donated their war bonds. And also all the service organizations came together and provided in-kind support and donations, more donations and so forth all over the years that really helped bring this all together. And I think that's a great community story.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that was, I knew Living Memorial Park was to remember like a foreign war. But I actually thought it was older than it was. I thought it was.
Yeah, I thought it might be too, because Brattleboro does have a lot of history.
Yeah, I thought it was.
And
like
I imagine
World
this
War
is
II.
just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, they have so much more to write about. I'm guessing.
And I didn't realize that that area prior to World War II had been a farm that had fallen into disuse.
Right.
And 34,000 in war bonds that were donated by the community.
Yeah.
That was really neat.
And like I said, and then all the service organizations really stepped up and, did all kinds of in-kind donations and services and so forth. So really came together.
Yeah, and it's Living Memorial Park is such a vibrant place now. It's exciting.
Yeah, and then, built it on over the years. It started with just like basic skiing, but then they added the swimming pool and the skating rink and the ball fields and, all kinds of, now they're going to add a skate park.
Well, Melanie, wonderful to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming in. And here is Pat Pagano with your weather.